This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauta. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Hello, world, and welcome to episode 240 of Geek Leader Podcast. I'm your host, John Rauta. Today's sponsor is A2 Hosting. I've been using A2 Hosting solid-state hosting solutions for our website at geekleader.com for many, many years now, and absolutely love their support, their service, and all the features that you get. You get access to cPanel. You get all of the things that you can imagine for a great WordPress experience, including their A2 optimized WordPress, which does extra security checks, extra lockdown. You can lock down your editor file so you can't edit anything inside there. You get alerts whenever there are file changes that are done. You can also do automatic updates, backups, and more with A2 Hosting. So highly recommend it. Go to geekleader.com/A2 to get more information and to sign up for their solid-state, turbocharged speed hosting today. Again, that's at geekleader.com/A2. All right, Geek Leaders. Today on the show, I have Paul Szyarto, and he is a business and technology expert, which we're going to talk a lot about how those two work together and all about leadership and consultant. He's worked with some huge enterprises, including helping the Microsoft data center design. He's worked on a lot of ERP and integration systems, which is one of the big things that a lot of us tech leaders are kind of working through right now. It's how to integrate and do a lot of digital transformation, which is one of the big buzzwords. He's also an expert when it comes to project management. So lots of cool things we're going to talk about today. With all that being said, Paul, welcome to the show.
John, thanks so much for having me.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about how you got to where you are today in your career, just to lay some context for what we're going to be talking about.
Well, it's actually a very interesting path forward. So I come from New Jersey, Central Jersey, and my background is probably not what people expect. I come from I call it a broken home. My dad was an alcoholic. You know, we had an incident when I was around 12. He shot up my house. Next thing you know, I'm going down this path, and by 17, I was in the military. So when I joined the military, I was going down the path to become a Marine, but my uncle, who's a senior chief of the Navy, called and he goes, "Hey, you got to talk to the Navy." Went over to the naval recruiter. Next thing you know, I'm joining the Navy as a nuclear engineer. So I did that for a total of 8 years, and was discharged from the Navy. And I said, "Okay, now what do I do? How do I make money?" And I actually had a job for about 3 months, and I went down the path of doing some coding, created an asset, sold an asset. I'm like, wow, people are going to pay me to build cool things. So I got into software development a bit, and then from there developed one thing, developed another thing, and so on and so on. Just went down the path of building asset after asset. Finally, I got into the world of SAP. And I was doing an implementation with the Picatinny Arsenal up in northern Jersey for the U.S. Army, and from there, my world of big ERP, TL, data integration, big data. That's what really kicked me off at the young age of 26. So 26, I was imagining multi-billion-dollar SAP implementations, which was pretty cool. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Today, I have my own private equity that invests in pretty much everything. I'd say I really like tech and combative systems. They both bring in probably the highest revenues at this point. So we provide tech in all industries, from pharma to construction management, project management, mobile apps, social apps. So we're pretty much doing everything. So.
Awesome. And, when you're deciding to, do your own business, what was that like? What was the you get out of the Navy, you get a job for a little bit, like, look, I'm going to transition. Was there a lot of fear involved in that, or was it just like, I'm ready to go?
I mean, for me, there was actually no fear for me. It's like, the way I grew up has always been pretty much as call it a lifepreneur in a way, where I always had to figure out a way to, make money on my own, progress my life, and to progress, to succeed. So when I got out of the Navy, having that stability, that steady paycheck every 2 weeks, I'm like, yeah, let me try that path. And what I learned was, I don't like to be in a bubble. I don't like to be in a single, in a closet doing one thing. So for me to get out and become an entrepreneur and doing, many things with many different opportunities and, looking to see what really monetizes, what doesn't, that's where I prosper. So for me, it wasn't scary. For most, it's downright, like the most scariest thing you could ever do, to be on your own. So, but for me, it was pretty good.
Yeah. So when it comes to like tech leaders and things that you're looking at whenever you are investing, what are some of the qualities that you kind of are helping you see that this is a successful business? So they've got good leadership in place.
It really comes down to a few different factors. One, I always look at from a business standpoint. I look at the competence levels, of course. I look at the experience, of course, but I really focus a lot on the loyalty aspect of how these businesses are constructed, because a lot of small businesses, what they'll do is they'll go down the strict competency route and they try to hire the best of breed to help them build a company. But best of breed typically doesn't like to work for a single company. They like to progress and they like to succeed. They like the taste of money. So they're typically the entrepreneurs or these top level consultants that you can never get to work for your business. I like organizations that focus on loyalists, that are there because they have a purpose to help you progress the asset. Competence can be taught. So people that are loyal, you could actually put them down a path of progression to actually support your organization. So when I look at a small business or large business, I look at the mixture of competency and loyalty to progress the organization down a path. So
yeah. So basically, like, if you're passionate about the product, you believe in the product, you're going to be loyal to it. It's kind of the mindset.
I'd say it goes a lot further than just passion for the product, because you could actually jump ship for a product that's similar. I'd say it's passion for the product, the methodology, the team, the organization, being part of the whole, versus just a piece of the whole. So it's like a lot of tech leaders, they go down a path of, here's another key thing too, is like just being multiversed in what they're trying to build. I mean, a lot of tech leaders focus strictly on tech versus seeing the aspects of business. So again, that goes down the path of like competency, where I'm not just hiring people that are like-minded down a tech path. I'm hiring people that are competent in multi-domains to help me actually progress the organization. So yeah, we look for a combination of competence, like multifaceted competence that actually supports the functional areas of a progressing organization, and the loyalty aspects. So.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've noticed. I mean, I went and got my MBA because I think business knowledge and acumen is really important when it comes to tech leadership and understanding how the technology that you're supporting or building is going to drive the business, and not just be an order taker, but have a seat at the table when it comes to making business decisions. And it seems like that's one of the gaps that a lot of you get. Let's say you go back in time, you graduate from college, you get a computer science degree, you get a job writing code, you become a manager of a group that's writing code. And next thing you know, you're leading the tech group and you don't have any of that business background. What should you be doing along the way? And maybe if you find yourself in that situation, to get that business knowledge?
So this is probably the greatest gap that I see within the tech world. Too many people are like so deep in the technology, the stack they're working on, they fail to understand the financial, aspects of building a business. And so I'd say the first thing is, if just in general, just get an accounting background, just get a financial background, because decisions are quantified. So if you're progressing down a path from a tech standpoint, you're looking at quality assurance, bug defects, you're looking at testing and progression of a system based on quality assurance. Same thing happens in the world of business. I mean, you have to quantify your decisions, and the problem is a lot of tech leaders, they fail to create that see the merge between tech quantification and business quantification based on how it affects the bottom line of a company. They're worried about, I need to get my product out, versus, okay, what is the value of the product? What revenues is that product going to generate? What impact to the organization is the product going to generate? I'd say focus on becoming an accountant that does tech versus a tech that, can manage a basic checkbook. So
yeah. No, I agree with you. I think when I first learned about the different financial ratios like ROI and ROA and things like that, and being able to apply them to each project. So now I changed my whole mindset. So I go into a project not thinking about like how cool this thing is going to be that we're going to build. I think, well, what is the return on the investment of this? How much effort is this going to take? How much is that going to cost me in the long run? And what's it going to take for me to support this going forward? What's the cost of that? And all those kind of factors play in my mind. And sometimes I'll be talking to someone, they'll have this great idea, or it seems like a great idea at the time. And then when we flesh out like the actual numbers behind it, it's like, oh, this is a terrible idea. What are we thinking?
It's actually, the majority of ideas are pretty awful if you put the business metrics behind them. But they sound really cool. They look really cool. We got a passion to push them forward. And that's why so many of these organizations waste money, because, passion doesn't progress a business. Finances do, margin does, revenues do, progress the business.
So what do you say to people that, because there's been several businesses in the news that have been successful, tech businesses, it's hard to say what is successful these days or not. They've gotten venture backed, they've raised a lot of money, but yet they've never shown a profit, like Uber and Lyft and things like that. Were those bad ideas, or were they just poorly executed, or what does that fit in?
So that's a really good question. So let me explain this. So there's two different frames of thinking. There's a traditional model of thinking where it's revenue and margin that creates value for the organization. That's going to go through your traditional P values and multipliers to get a value on the company. Mm-hmm. However, there's a philosophy that other Ps use, like my own, called impact valuation, which is based on three factors, which is reach, revenue, and margin. So if we consider the two, revenue and margin. However, if it's zero, you now need to consider, what the reach factor is. So I'll give you an example, like a WhatsApp or a Facebook. At the beginning, these companies were just burning through cash. They had zero revenue. They were just, in debt. They were debt funded. So they were pulling in capital just to run the company. However, they had a reach multiplier. So when you have a company called WhatsApp that reaches 250 million people that may not be monetizing today, it's like, what is the valuation of each one of those heads that are within the reach of the company? So anyone who's considering valuation based on just revenue and margin is failing without considering reach. So you have to really take into account what the multiplier is once you create a monetization strategy for headcount on the reach, valuation factor. Okay. So that's why those organizations succeed. Like Instagram is a good idea because it was a reach valuation model, which in time you can figure out a way to monetize the reach, and then you create a revenue and margin, factor within the total valuation. So
I get that for like Facebook and Instagram and things that are reaching lots of people, and they have like that ability to monetize through ad revenue or data that they're accumulating. How does Uber do that in Lyft when it seems like they're just burning through cash and not being able to turn a profit?
But that's not. I don't think that's the case. If you take a look at it like an Uber, or every organization is focused on reach. If you're not focusing on reach, you're going to fail. So the thing is just focusing on revenue. Like I'll give you perspective. So let's say we're building a company. We reach $100 million in revenue with a 2% margin. So we're making $2 million bottom line, right? And the problem is we have reach of one customer. We have one customer that we're reaching to make $100 million. What happens when that customer goes bankrupt? Are you still going to be valued at, whatever value? Probably not. But if you have diversification with your reach, with 100 customers all giving you $1 million, see, me as an investor, I'd look at the rule of like customer dependency. I'd say, okay, well, you got one customer. My risk factor for valuing you is now going to go sky high because that one customer goes away, you're dead. If you take into consideration like an Uber, right? Uber has, like, we're looking at traditional factors on valuation, revenue versus margin. They're burning through cash, but why are they burning through cash? They're creating a vast network of reach based on, drivers, insurance model, delivery models, and so on and so on. In addition, now we take into consideration reach based on data. And now what is the valuation factor? Not just on the reach, but also on the data. So the data alone reaches a whole nother segment of society, the populations, and the economy. So Uber is a tremendous idea because it has reach-based, monetization models that can be applied today or tomorrow. So it's like there's already, like, Uber's making money today. It's like people are looking at Uber on how to make more money with Uber. So that's why you can dump billions of dollars in, because Uber hasn't even been exploited yet. We haven't even exploited the monetization model of Uber yet, or Lyft or whatever. So that's why they're good ideas, because they have so much reach and so much control over knowledge and data. So
that's where investment come in, because like if you can invest and grow that reach, then you can monetize in other aspects, including
exactly.
data.
Yep, 100%, man. So
Awesome.
that's the goal of building a business and running an asset is like, again, too many techies, they focus on single stream, productization
Mhm.
instead of like multi-stream, monetization and like impact factors. And what they'll do is like these companies will go, well, okay, well, we're creating a widget and the widget's going to be used for this, but they don't take into consideration all the other aspects of how that widget can make them the organization money. So, and that's why you got to put on your accounting hat, say, oh, wow, look at what we got here. So
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to like I was having a conversation with someone a couple weeks ago about Google, and I remember back, and it's going to date me, like back before Google really before it existed, and you were using like Ask Jeeves to search, and then I heard like
yeah.
Google's coming. There's this Google search engine. I'm like, how are they going to make money? They put a couple of ads on there, and it never really dawned on me back then that it's the data. Google's going to know more about me than my neighbors are going to know about me. They're going to know more about me than friends and family, and they're going to be able to target ads directly to me and have something that more valuable than almost anything else, just by refining that search. So the search isn't
Yeah.
really the product, it's the data.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. Google's a really interesting company because they own 92% plus of the market share of web search. So
Mhm.
that means that they've pretty much monopolized advertising dollars from a web search standpoint. In addition, if you take into consideration all the other areas that Google monetizes, which people don't, Alphabet owns like 300 companies. If you take a look at those 300 companies, like the top 10 websites in the world, Google owns 4 of them.
Wow.
The highest monetizing websites in the world, like Google owns 4 of them. Like if you think about that, it's like, okay, that's why this company makes money when they sleep and when they do everything. So it's like they have figured out the engine to monetize everything. So same thing with Amazon. Amazon is trying to do the same thing. They're trying to monetize every aspect of the consumer. That's why Amazon owns all these companies. They're like, they see a demand and a potential monetization route, and they go, okay, well, let's buy a company and like make 5 points. So
yeah, that definitely makes sense.
yeah.
So what have you seen? You mentioned earlier, when you're talking about like tech and having good margins, and cybersecurity is definitely one of the areas that's, from my standpoint, is being a VP of tech, I see all vendors are coming at me. It seems like cybersecurity is the fastest growing area within tech. Is that true, and if so, why is that?
I would say cyber is probably one of the most demanded areas of tech right now. It's probably not the fastest growing. I would say AI, machine learning, is probably the fastest growing. Domains of big data are fast growing, but from a strict CAGR standpoint, it's like probably AI, ML, cybersecurity is probably closely following, and it's just because it's the demand of for the tone of the market. So what's interesting about cyber is that security breach has always been there. It's always been there. It's always been rampant. Organizations are getting breached every single day. It's not if you're going to get breached, it's when you're going to get breached. It comes down to the media on what they're willing to publicize regarding those breaches. When you see big tech like Facebook getting breached, it's like, okay, now the narrative is changing a little bit because the media is now, it's essentially allowing for the big reveal that if Facebook didn't have it, everybody can have it. So now everybody's ramping up from a cyber standpoint. And I think that the global battle, the war on who's going to be the biggest economy and who's going to be who's going to win. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with cyber threats and data. So, and that's pretty much the second domain that I'm going through. It's like there's not enough hands and bodies to actually do this cyber protection. So that's where AI and ML is now coming in, and we're now creating these automated learning systems to now protect your organization. And we're creating companies and economies are actually creating these models to actually create cyber attacks based on the same thing. So it's going to become this learning engine on both sides. Whose bot is smarter? So.
Yeah, yeah, and you see that with pretty much all the products that are out there now are have an AI component that are being sold with it, and it also seems like the reach of it is going much further. It used to be, if you had a small business of let's say 20, 50 employees, you had a firewall and you had endpoint protection, and that was about it. That was about all you needed. But now you've got to have some type of EDR solution,
Yep.
something to monitor your logs, to monitor data exfiltration, and now you have cyber insurance. You have all these little pieces that have to be put in there.
Yep.
And you see that growing not just for the big companies, but now it's everybody.
Yep. So you brought up a point about AI. Everybody's got some kind of a piece of AI right now. I would say 9 out of 10 organizations that are offering AI, it's all kind of bullshit because nobody really knows what AI is right now. So it's coming down to like these learning engines that can start learning on their own. AI is more like still telling it, what to do, more or less. It's less about learning. So
it's less machine learning, more people.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a T-shirt I saw at a conference that said AI is really just people.
Yeah, AI is more or less like people. Machine is like you're now like building this model that's going to learn on its own. So versus telling it what it's doing. So,
it's definitely one of the buzzwords that you see on almost every sales pitch that comes in there. It's like AI, and then if you dig in, you say, "So what is your AI actually doing?" Well, it's learning your network behavior. Okay, well, how is it learning it? Oh, by reading your logs. Okay, well, we've always had log monitors that did that. What makes this different?
Then you have to teach it. So
yeah,
I mean, the highest demand resource right now in confidence is probably data scientists who understand the AI ML model. So the thing is, there's not enough people to go around to actually build it for all these organizations. So what you're doing is you're creating a simple coded algorithm to just read logs and to spit out a visualization that says, "Oh, you got a breach here," based on this common log, versus a tool that's starting to predict, based on what you're doing when you're going to have a breach. So it's mostly BS. So it's just a buzzword these days.
Yep. And I've seen the same thing. It's kind of hilarious when you have like a sales rep that doesn't really understand it. They're just throwing the words out there
themselves.
Yeah. So you just point a little bit about like, well, what's different than this than just scanning logs? Like, how's it different? Because it's AI.
Yeah.
So with cyber being one of the growing fields, what kind of let's say some of our listeners are actually most of our listeners are probably like team leads or someone like that. And with this great resignation you hear about people talking about, and human resources being one of the components that is in short supply, especially in the tech area. What kind of advice would you have to people today that are looking to grow their careers in the tech world?
I would say don't stop learning, because what happens is we all get into this. Well, not me, but many people get into this this path of complacency, where well, I'm making X dollars per year. This company's going to be in this position, has me in this position. I don't need to grow. I just need to do. And the thing is, if you want to continue being highly competitive within the market, because there is a demand, supply issue. There's a high demand issue, and the thing is, if you're just one of those people that are complacent and progressing based on pushing buttons, I mean, those aren't the ones that are getting hired right now. So organizations are looking for the go-getters, the people that are like multifaceted with what they know. They want more or less they want the specialist, but also someone who's also a generalist in many areas, because the landscapes are becoming so complex, and we just never stop. That's the thing. Just don't stop. So just keep growing, keep developing, and that's how you're going to get recognized as a leader within a specific domain.
Yeah. There was a quote that whenever you stop growing, you start dying. And
too many are dying right now.
Yeah. So how has martial arts helped you kind of do this, continue to learn and go through struggle and improve?
So real quick, go to the background. So I've been doing martial arts for 25 years, heavily within the domain of Krav Maga for probably the past 12. And I don't mean just going to my local gym. I mean hiring teams and going out to Israel several times per year, working with the masters of Krav Maga, Haim Gidon, Eyal Yanilov, and so on. Like actually getting in the trench, understanding why they do it, how they do it, and I've done that with pretty much all domains of martial arts that I've done. But the premise of really getting into martial arts and doing things like Krav Maga is the survivor mindset, and also the understanding what it really takes to become an expert. People think that, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to punch a bag. Look at me, I can punch now. To learn how to do a straight punch, it takes 10,000 plus hours to learn how to do it perfectly, and that's what people don't really understand. And if you take that mindset and start applying it to every aspect of your life, that's where that never stop mindset comes from. It's like martial arts is about never stopping. I mean, how many times can you throw a kick before you think you're really good? You're actually never really good. You have to throw that kick every single day until it hurts. And that's what makes you an expert. And the thing is, like, becoming an expert doesn't mean I can stop throwing the kick. No, it becomes a template of excellence on how you live your life.
Mhm.
So every day you're actually throwing the kick. Every day you're working out. Every day you're doing something. You've actually now conditioned your body to be at a certain level. And the same thing goes with your mind. So if you could apply those same, tactics, techniques, and, progression models within your body, you should be doing the same thing to your mind, so never stop, man. It's like, it's always find a way to progress, find a way to be different and better than the competition. So
Yeah, I think for me, it's also a little bit of humility, because like,
yeah.
I feel like I'm really good at what I do at my job, and I'm pretty good at my, getting things done. I'm pretty good at solving problems at work. And then I go to the gym, and, my 11-year-old daughter has so much better form than I do. Her roundhouses are beautiful. It's a thing to watch. And whereas mine is kind of clunky, and it's like, God, I need to keep going. I got to keep working, and having that little bit of humility and understanding that, I can get better. I just got to train. And, and then you can take that and apply that to life. Here, I can think, yeah, I may be good at this place, but there's other areas that I need to grow in. There's other areas that are out there. There's always some new thing that I need to use, apply, and then improve upon.
Yeah. I think there's another aspect of this too. So the thought. So what you just went through, like, your roundhouse kick isn't as good as your daughter's. However, this is the mindset of like a like a craviste, like in a world of martial arts. So the goal is to understand what your ceiling is, what your limitations are. So for example, 5 years ago, I was able to do like a really nice spinning back kick. However, I'm getting older, certain things are changing. So the thing is, it's not about thinking about not being able to do the spinning back kick. It's about finding a way to win. And that's the key thing about like Krav Maga that I like over other martial arts, is because you're, like Taekwondo, you're graded how great you could kick, how you do X, Y, and Z. However, Krav Maga is about, you're graded on how you win. So that's the same philosophy in business. I don't care if it looks perfect at times. I care about the result. And if I'm progressing and winning, that's all that matters. So you got to stop grading, it allows you to stop grading yourself on, technical form at times. And it's actually helped me to grade myself on result of execution, versus, technical form. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, taking this back to coding and technology, that a lot of developers kind of fall into, because they're so interested in making sure their code looks good, that it's pretty, that they forget about the fact that, does it actually do what you need it to do? Does it serve the purpose for the end user? And sometimes we forget those aspects. And I think that's a really good way to bring that back.
Oh yeah. I completely agree. So.
Yeah. So when it comes to like a business standpoint, how important is it for the developers and the engineers that are building products to truly understand what the users are looking for?
I think that, so this is a really interesting comment. So there's something called the traditional mindset on product development, and then there's something called GAF economics. Okay. So if, for all of your listeners, if you don't understand GAF economics, I'll go through that real quick for you. So traditional product development is, hey, we think this is going to work. We're going to build a product, and we're going to build a team to go sell the product. That's traditional economics, right? Now we have a profit center based on that product. Versus GAFA economics. GAFA stands for like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple. And what they're doing right now is they're looking at the data to understand what the people factor is. How do you create customer segmentation and start understanding demand drivers? And that actually drives what you're going to bring to market. So from a coding standpoint, it's not about like, will your consumers use it? You shouldn't actually be coding until you know what your consumers want. So that's a big difference in mindset thinking. So so I see that as a huge gap. A lot of organizations are going down this path to create great product, but they have no clue about the consumer consumption model.
Right.
So if you need to reverse engineer that, you need to understand the consumer consumption model before you go down the product path. So
that's where like you doing is that kind of like doing an MVP, kind of getting your minimal viable product out there, seeing how that's adopted before you actually spend the money to develop a full-fledged product?
I actually say prior to MVP, you're now doing digital analytics to understand the consumer segment. So for example, Amazon did an analysis of consumption of, product around tiny homes, right? So once they understood that there's a demand for tiny homes, what do? They went out and bought a company that delivered tiny homes. So same thing with like women's leggings. They're not creating a legging hoping it sells. Same thing in the world of product development. I mean, an MVP is a minimum viable product to, sell it and to validate with a certain consumer base that it works. However, it's like what you're doing is you're validating product again versus what is the need. So you should be aligning MVP with customer need before the customer even sees it, because you've already done the work. You've already validated that you're going to fill a gap on consumer need. So it's like MVP should be more so a, hey, this is the product you requested versus, hey, what do you think of this product? So. Yeah,
it's almost like you pre-order the product before you build it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like organizations that are doing that, like the pre-analytical work prior to MVP, those are the ones that are really succeeding. So.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I remember hearing an interview with Tim Ferriss, like probably a decade ago, where before he wrote the 4-Hour Workweek, he actually pre-sold books with the title 4-Hour Workweek to see if that would sell. And he's like, okay, it will sell. Let me write the book.
Yeah, we do that in the world of higher education. So I would actually create the digital marketing around what courses I think may sell to see what the demand response is on the course. And then if the demand response was high, then we created the course. So,
awesome. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's definitely a mind shift, or mindset shift you have to go through to get there.
Yeah, most people don't see it. So
yeah, well, Paul, it's been a great conversation. How can people find out more about the things that you're doing and connect with you online?
So I am honestly not a big social media guy because like 99.9% of what you see on social media is not real. So I advise everyone to just go to my key website, paulszyarto.com. That's PaulSzyarto.com. And then you can see everything that I'm doing right now. You can see my life history, you can see my accolades, and you can see the integration with all the clients through psgroupholdings.com. And we're actually about to release an amazing entrepreneurial system called Mentobo that will help all the techs out there, all the entrepreneurs out there to fulfill all the base requirements they have in life to succeed in the business of life, such as like health insurance, life insurance, all those key things. Plus, we're going to give out all these really cool tools to help you succeed. Plus, you get access to all of these discounts. It's a really cool system. So
real quick, where did the name come from? Mentobo.
Something I sat down one day. I'm like a name guy. I'm like a marketer with these names. It's like we sat down and we built another system called Membrella, which is the umbrella for member management. So we actually have a system that manages all these member portals. But Mentobo is the art of mentoring in the world of business opportunity. So.
Awesome. I think that's pretty cool. I'll link that up in the show notes as well, so people can find that at geekleader.com. And again, Paul, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Great, John. Thanks for having me, man.
If you enjoyed that episode, please leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. I'd greatly appreciate that. And also, don't forget to check out merch. We have some T-shirts that I've designed that are on at geekleader.com. You can click on the merchandise section there and check that out. And also, don't forget about the books from our guests. So if you like this guest and other guests that have written books, please go ahead and check that out at geekleader.com. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure they would too.